Hi, I'm Ludic Ryan. Today I'd like to talk about the special evolution of the audio diary from Gone Home to Tacoma. Both titles are from the Fulbright Company in 2013 and 2017 respectively. They task the player with exploring their respective environments and uncovering the stories held within. Gone Home uses audio diaries to tell the thoughts and feelings of the player character's sister as she returns home from travelling. Tacoma also uses pre-recorded narrative devices to tell the story of a spaceship and its inhabitants. However, it progresses past solely audio information and represents an audio-visual performance which constructs a living, breathing space instead of a museum or a ruin. In Gone Home, the player character has come back from travelling through Europe to an empty house that the family recently moved into. From the start, Gone Home is framed with this information, and the question of where everyone has gone drives the exploration through the space. The player character will find notes and narrative information throughout the space that illuminates the thoughts and actions of the family, but upon reading certain notes, the player will hear audio diaries from the younger sister Sam, who is the primary focus of the story. The recordings are left for the player character to listen to and understand why even the youngest family member is not present in the house. Tacoma, on the other hand, is set on a spaceship in 2088, which the player also finds abandoned. The player character is sent by the corporation that owns the ship to upload the records of what happened. They then progress from one ship section to another, exploring notes and information embedded within the space. But the primary focus of the game is on scenes which show holograms of the 6 inhabitants interacting with each other and attending to the problems they face, from interpersonal relationships to the structural integrity of the ship itself. So let's look at the narrative devices used in Gone Home and Tacoma. Whilst Gone Home focuses on the audio diary, Tacoma expands from it and adds a special dimension to this form of narrative discourse. Audio diaries were popularised most by immersive sims like System Shock 2 and Bioshock, but they exist in a variety of other games like Doom 3, the Fallout series, The Last of Us, Dead Space, and the Batman Arkham series of games. If we compare them to written notes, they're a useful way of contextualising story information and past tense events, while still allowing the player to continue exploring the game world. These logs and diaries are inherently personal and involve the speaker conveying their thoughts and feelings towards an imagined listener. Gone Home uses the personal nature of the audio diary with the character of Sam, who leaves diaries for her sister as she explores the house. These diaries sometimes have contextual relevance with the particular room they are found in, but they primarily follow a chronological sequence of how the player comes across them, telling Sam's story of her experience in a new school and meeting her friend Lonnie. In Tacoma, the spaceship has recorded the movements and conversations of the inhabitants, turning each space the player character visits into a stage play. The movements of the inhabitants are realised through hologram projections, and the player character can move around the space and frame their actions how they want. Distance from the characters is important for listening into their conversations, and the player character has full control over the playing of the scene, rewinding parts to listen again or observing the key code being entered on a door panel. This evolution of an audio narrative device into a spatial performance can require the player to scrutinise the actions of characters. The role of the player becomes more active in examining the performance for clues to progress, like door codes. Further, the player's role is more active in observing the physical idiosyncrasies of the characters. Whilst in an audio diary, characters are expressing information they are willing to give as there is an intended listener. Observing the recorded movements of the characters in Tacoma can reveal insights that they may not wish to communicate in an audio diary. In one scene, the medical officer Sarah moves to another room as she is about to have a panic attack. Her movement is integral to this scene. As the weight of the situation presses in, her movement slows. She needs to lean on railings for support. As the panic attack sets in, her movement speed accelerates and she holds onto her chest because her breathing starts to get out of control. This scene is evocative because of the accompanying movement. The special representation of character action adds another dimension to our experience of these events. An audio diary could not capture this scene, partly because of the perspective of a diary focuses on the thoughts and feelings of the character, but also because movement is an integral layer in this scene. This visual presence of the characters in the space station, though recorded, makes the space feel lived in. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture utilises the visual representation of characters with a similar effect. Both spaces become tangibly real because we observe the actions of those who have previously inhabited it. In contrast, the emptiness of the mansion in Gone Home is keenly felt. No other person occupies the space at that time. All that is left is a museum of past actions excavated by the player character. This should in no way invalidate the achievements and strength of Gone Home's style of narrative discourse, But in comparing the two, we can see how these forms of discourse can result in different narrative experiences. By showing them alongside each other, we can see the differences that perspective can have on the narrative. The thoughts of a character told through audio diaries can give you a deeper understanding of their motivations, but a representation of their actions can, to use Gordon Calais' term, incorporate the player into that game world. As explored previously in Sybil, changes in the framing and perspective of story events can have really interesting effects in video games. Tacoma outlines a fascinating alternative to the audio diary, but it also expands the ways in which we can experience narrative in games. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to watch last week's video on the novel movement patterns found in Flinthook, then click on the video on the right. If you'd like to explore unique forms of perspective in video games like the autobiography Sybil, then click on the video on the left. Next week I'll be talking about the specialisation of the hit bar in Nidhogg 2, so if you'd like to be notified when that releases, then click on the subscribe button.